Hey, everybody, come. All right, we're starting. All right, we're starting. If you're in the back, you have to stop. Guys, if you're in the back, shh. If you're in the back, be quiet. If you're in the back, come forward. If you're in the back, Macy, just go back and just either tell them to go downstairs or come forward. But they can't stay there. All right, so we are gonna get started here. The problem is the sound system is not incredibly great, so. All right, so you might be wondering why you all are here, and the answer is because you're celebrating decentralized science. And this is actually I think the 45th decentralized science meetup that we've had. I know because I can keep track of the numbers on the Luma invite. Okay, so we're at Decentralized Science. We've had a lot of different speakers. We have a lot to get through today, so I think we're just going to get started instantaneously. If you guys have questions about decentralized science, if you want to see our invites, our videos, this is all live streamed. You can go to DeSciNYC. All right, so without further ado, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Crémieux. And I will not say, but I got a couple of hate messages telling me to cancel him, and I was like, no, the man will speak. So, give it up! Woo! But wait, but before, let's do one picture. 3, 2, 1, smile. Do you want to get in it? You want to get in?
Sure.
3, 2, 1, smile. There we go.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
And you have to get into it.
Did you put the slides up?
Oh.
Very important to have the slides.
Mikey, don't dox on my next, man. Come on.
What?
How are you feeling? Am I coming through clearly on this or no?
You've got to stick it in your mouth.
Yeah.
I have to get really close to this for this thing to work?
Yeah.
Hey, how are we feeling? Woo! How do I go to the next slide? I just click?
More? Bigger goal.
What the fuck? Great. Okay. Can't really see the front. That's whatever. It's fine. Just click this.
Guys, come.
Great. Come forward. Cuddle up like you love each other. Why is China winning clinical trials? I'll tell you in a second.
Why is this not in Chinese?
It should be in Chinese. It'll be in Chinese. Kathy, can you translate it to Chinese for us? You got you? Thank you. All right. Can everybody hear me? Great, good. Some guy who sent me a message, I don't even know who he is, complaining about the volume. So oh, there they are. They're back there yelling about. Scooch up then.
Scooch up.
Just get up here.
The people in the back, push forward.
Ride some guys back like a piggyback. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
Come forward. You can do it.
I'll give it a few seconds. It's gonna feel good. They're gonna really cuddle. It's gonna be really hot.
Kiss on the lips.
Kiss on the lips. Why are these guys kissing each other on the lips right now? All right, I don't care if you guys still can't hear it too much. I'm just gonna get started, okay? Okay, so I'm giving you a rehashed presentation I gave in Prospera a few months ago. It is about China. The C word that I mentioned on Twitter is China. China. We're gonna talk about why China is winning in clinical trials. And what I mean by that is something I'll explain in a few seconds. Okay, just to give everybody a bit like a, basic introduction, a clinical trial has 4 phases. They really have 3 phases that are official. You have your phase 1, you do your safety trial. You have your phase 2, that's where you take a select population who might have some big condition that you really want to treat, and you have like a larger sample in the phase 1, and you don't just show safety, you show the drug works. Then in phase 3, you get a more population representative sample, and you run a bigger trial, and you show the drug really works. And if it really works, then you get approved. And when you're approved, you go into the unofficial, not really a real thing, phase 4. That's post-market monitoring. That's monitoring of people's symptoms on the drug, their interactions with other things. Like, remember phenylpropylamine? It used to be a great drug for weight loss. It actually probably still is. But some women had weird polymorphisms of like SIP, and they drank like mountains of caffeine, and they got strokes because they were being dumb. And they had to ban this drug. And that's only something you would discover in phase 4, because it's a super, super rare idiot thing. And that happens with a lot of drugs. So that's phase 4. It's the idiot tier part of the trial. Not really a trial. You just monitor stuff afterwards. Like, how are people abusing my drug I got approved? That's what it is. If you get Coke approved, somebody's probably going to abuse the Coke. That's what I'm saying here. So, I love that I can. It's really weird seeing myself on stream with like a lag. You guys can't see this, but it's crazy. So, okay. America produces a lot of trials, but it's been fairly stable, slightly up since 2005, but not enormously up a little bit. You guys see the numbers? Are you able to see the numbers? You guys got all this? Yeah, some nods? Okay, great, we see the numbers. So, what do you think China's been doing? Fuck. A lot. China's been doing a lot. So, China has been just having, skyrocketing. But the thing is, before 2016, China really produced no novel drugs, nothing at all. They just didn't make stuff in pharmaceuticals because they weren't really cut out for it. Let's put this side by side. Okay. Do you see how that looks? Those are on the same scale, same y-axis scale here. Who's ahead? It's China. And I want to remind people, for the past 50, 60 or so years, America has been #1 in total for pharmaceuticals. We've been ahead of the EU, even though they're a much bigger place. Yeah. Woo! Fuck the EU. I don't know. They're great. No, they're our allies. We should support them. Support your allies. They're good. But China is now ahead of the US, definitively, in terms of clinical trials, in every phase. They're beating America on literally every dimension. As of last year, they've been beating them on phase 1s. Any novel indications? Actually, I'll get to that in a second. Okay. You've all taken your pictures. A lot of people wanted pictures of that. It's pretty cool. Okay, next slide. Right. Okay, so that's actually the same sort of slide. It's just in a different format. Moving this way?
Yeah.
I'm going over here.
Yeah.
Great, that's good. Okay. Hi, guys. So, Chinese companies are initiating a lot more trials than American companies are. And American companies actually aren't initiating more trials than they were a few years ago. They had a lot of trials related to COVID, and they weren't very productive, as you guys might imagine. There weren't a lot of drugs introduced for COVID. And the ones that were, like Paxlovid, weren't very good. China actually has a better version of Paxlovid, but that's irrelevant. We'll just go to the next slide. So, what do these drug trials actually do? They do result in more drugs. China has been approving more and more and more drugs. And a lot of these are novel drugs. They're drugs that have never had any approval elsewhere. Maybe their indication's never been hit. Maybe their mesh term has never been hit. Maybe a million other things. But these novel drugs approved in China are a real result of these clinical trials. Additionally, do you guys know what a Me Too drug is? Can I see some hands real quick? Do you know what a Me Too drug is? You know what a Me Too drug is. But like, not very many people know what a Me Too drug is, so I'll cover it. Great. So, hepatitis C, there's a cure. It's an antiviral treatment. It's really expensive. Gilead introduced it in like 2013. Thanks. Thanks, my own slide. Or 14, sorry. And then Amgen, or maybe I'm getting this backwards. Amgen might have been the first, Gilead in a second. Somebody introduced it. One of the other ones got on. They produced basically the same drug the next year. And then they lowered the actual price paid by insurers, the net price. Well, the list price was like preserved. Doesn't really matter. It's the list price is kind of a fake price. They lowered the price paid because there were two drugs and they're competing. When you have more drugs on the market, they compete. And they lower each other's prices that you can actually get, reimbursed and whatnot. But these drugs are practically identical. They were almost the exact same things. That's Me Too. Oh, I see that this drug is really profitable. I'm going to make the exact same thing pretty much. And then they get it introduced on the market. And that's a Me Too drug. The accusation for about 20 years, with respect to China and previously with respect to Japan, was that they only produce Me Too drugs, copying America and then lowering America's prices. They can get reimbursed and everything else. There's also like an undercurrent of like, oh, Asians aren't creative. They don't make anything. It's silly. There are a lot of Me Too drugs out there. For example, do you guys know about pembrolizumab? Keytruda, you ever heard that one? Yeah. It's the most commonly given immunotherapy. It's a PD-1 checkpoint inhibitor, and it is wonderful. There's been an immunotherapy revolution in cancer treatment, where you stack it on chemotherapy, and then it just becomes much better for so many different cancers. And there'll be other little revolutionary advances relatively soon. It's going to be pretty cool. But short and sweet, a lot of these are Me Too drugs. There are tons of Me Too drugs in this space because they're enormously expensive and they're actually relatively easy to produce. And you can treat cancer remarkably well with them. But China's not doing Me Too drugs. The accusation is false. China is leading in lots of novel modalities. So for example, there are only a few gene therapies approved in the US. What is it? We have sickle cell anemia, we have some hemophilias, and like practically nothing else, or some on the way, but practically nothing. China is producing more trials in cell and gene therapies than America is by, you see that margin there? They have almost 200 trials going in 2025, whereas America had fewer than 50. These are relatively novel, and they have to be. They're not going after 200 different sickle cell therapies, obviously. They're going after real, meaningful things, and obviously America can't produce as many as them because they just the numbers don't match. They're also going after novel cell and gene therapies. So more than half of the drugs that China is going after in the cell and gene therapy space are genes that have never been targeted before. So Russia has a drug for VEGF, neovasculogen. That is vascular endothelial growth factor. It's used for all sorts of things. You can prescribe it for vascular alopecia. You can give it for crazy things like diabetics have limp discs. You can cure that with that. It's great. There are tons of things you can do with it. China's not going after that. They're going after things that no one has ever done before. And that's more than half their gene therapies. It's just indisputable they're innovating. Additionally, antibody-based drugs, also fairly innovative. And we had a big little pump up in them during 2021 because of COVID. But China's now well ahead. I mean, considerably ahead. It's like nearly double what America's doing. Additionally, small molecule drug trials, those are your pills and everything, they're still ahead. You go to novel small molecule drug, well, that's not the right slide, whatever. Novel drug compounds entering first in human trials. China has, again, nearly double what America has. Things that have never been worked on before. Let me see if I got the right slide here. That's not the right slide either, but it's fine. These are frontier drugs. These are drugs that are at the cutting edge. Again, China is really far ahead. If you just look at it in total, that is on the red, you have the novel indication ratio. And on the one on the bottom, you have all starts. So they're ahead in terms of running total numbers of trials, but they're even more ahead when it comes to the most innovative trials. In short, China is not just copying America. They're not doing Me Too drugs. They are actually producing very, very innovative trials for drugs that are incredibly good a lot of the time. They're things we're not working on. They're going after novel indications. They're going after things in novel ways. They're going after things in ways that America predicted they would go after them, but they just never did. Go to the next one. Right, so you can actually look, this is the same chart as before, almost, but it just shows novel compounds. And on this, China is, as you can see, further ahead than they were with the previous chart that showed all the trials. It's pretty bad for America. It's good for the world. I mean, we're all going to gain lots of cool drugs from this. So, why? I mean, Chinese clinical trials are bigger. They have a larger population, but they also make it much, much easier to recruit people. They bring a lot more people online on these trials, hundreds more in general for trial. And you can see this with specific indications where there are issues with small trials. So for example, antibody trials. They're generally in the US too small to achieve any sort of significant result. You'll have type 1 and type 2 errors dominating the progression of these trials. And as a result, you will run a trial, you'll spend a lot of money on it, and it'll just fail. China gets that less often because they recruit more people. They make it easier. You see this again, novel small molecule drugs. Take some novel pills. You don't expect pills to do very much usually. I mean, if you want a really big effect, you're going after like immunotherapy for cancer, you're going after blah, blah, blah. The thing is, with these drugs, you need some relatively large trials, and we're just not getting that in America, but China's getting a lot of that. They get much, much larger trials. Okay, so, you can go. All right. So, the thing you can't see because the top is cut off there is how did this happen? So, before 2016, when China did their massive reforms, they required all their clinical trials to go through Chinese FDA accredited sites. So sites by a site I mean like a hospital. A site for a trial could be like Mount Sinai, for example. It could be Cedars, it could be anything. You could have all these different hospitals where they run the trial partially because they're like have patients there that are enrolled in it. You have to be accredited by the Chinese FDA, which is a really practically defunct entity. They're not very good at their jobs. They weren't very good at their jobs. Now they're actually great. We'll get to that. And that just took like a lot of bureaucratic effort because there weren't very many approved sites. Also, their investigational new drug reviews, the INDs, took a very long time. When you submitted that you were going to start a trial, they would take most of a year to get back to you and say, good to go. And all they have to do is stamp it and go, yeah, you're not going to kill anybody, we think, or you're going to take the liability, we think. That's all you got to do. It should take no time at all. It should be, ideally, it's like a day thing, but 265 days to return a simple yes or no. Additionally, approval times averaged 6 years. For comparison in the US, after a phase 3 trial, the average approval time was about 180 days for a novel drug, and like it's supposed to be less, it's often not less. The target is less for generics, but 6 years is just an incredibly long time. Your company is probably not going to have the runway to last for 6 years after your trial. You're sitting there just going, hey, are you going to approve the drug yet? Are you going to approve the drug yet? And they haven't approved it. China was in a terrible state prior to 2016. Like, when it came to pharmaceuticals, there's a reason they had never produced a novel drug. And also, nothing was fast-tracked. They didn't have any fast-tracks. Like, we have the PRV, for example, in the US, the Priority Review Voucher, for rare diseases, where the FDA will just like, good to go, save this one person's life. They didn't have anything like that. Literally nothing like that. So no way to get past all the bureaucracy. And then it changed. China said, hey, we should not be lagging. We're way better than like India at this, obviously. And then they were like, we should be better than America at this. We don't know if we can be. We're going to try it. And so they asked practically everybody in the country. They were like, hey, just give us suggestions. Tell us what you want us to do. Do you want us to cut down timelines on blah, blah, blah? Identify specific features of the regulatory apparatus that aren't working for you as drug trial runners, as people who want to do stuff in China, who want to sell drugs in China, who want to do whatever, and tell us. So people sent in tons of suggestions, and the Chinese government was like, great. We're going to implement all the suggestions. And so they started massively implementing suggestions to just reform the system and make it good, which is not a thing you can really imagine in America. Can you imagine like, hey, we have this submission form, we're going to go read through all of it and just like change the law for you, and it's going to make things good. I'm blowing into the mic again. Like, that just doesn't happen here. But China did it. They just took all the suggestions from everybody and were like, yeah, we can make the trials better. Oh, you mean we have to do 20 different... Okay, I'm not going to tell you everything they did, because there's so much stuff they've done. One of my favorite things is, are any of you scientists? I assume a lot of you are scientists, right? Great. So, you ever gone through an IRB? Do you like IRBs? Are they your favorite part of research? Institutional review boards, these ethics review boards are the dog shit. I really hate them.
Gotta be ethical.
What's that?
Gotta be ethical.
Gotta be ethical. But the thing is, they're not really that ethical. I think they kill people, but we'll talk about that later. IRBs suck. If you want to run a trial in the US and you have 20 different sites, guess what you got to deal with? 20 different IRBs. One IRB can hold your trial up for years, potentially. In the US, they are delayed about 1.5 years on average because of the IRBs. It's really bad. So you'll have patients that are waiting to be recruited and they just die because the ethics review boards were like, we're not sure if it's ethical to save them. Whatever. We're just gonna let them die. Whatever. They don't really think about that part. They're just kind of annoying people. And sometimes, if they just don't like you, they might just say no to your trial. They're really shitty. So China said, got a great idea. If one ethics review board says it's good to go, why don't they all just have to accept that? So if one ethics review board in China says that your trial is good, every other region, every other site where they have the trials automatically gets the go-ahead. So the first one to say it, obviously the best one for human progress, just pushes it along and everybody gets to go and run the trial. It's great. Far better system than we have in America, and I wish we would adopt it.
Let's do it.
I will mention one more item of reform before I get to some actual specific graphs and stuff. They have this awesome thing, the market holder authorization system, and we have something like this in America, but they have a better one. So if you are introducing a new drug, you basically agree. If you're running into China, the trials in China, to take custody for all the preclinical evidence, the phase 1, phase 2 evidence, for everything, the manufacturing. You can have companies bid to do your manufacturing for you, for the placebo, for the actual drug itself. Whereas in America, there's a whole bureaucratic process for all of this. It makes it very difficult, and you have to interface with people along the entire way. And there's just no stopping how many people, get involved. They put their hands in, they slow everything down. But in China, they just go, hey, did you do everything right? Prove it. And then you prove it at the end of the trial, and then they're like, good, you're approved. Whereas in America, you are stopped every 2 seconds when you're out doing your trial, and it's a really terrible system. God, I wish we had their system. Okay, so how are they doing this? Look at this chart. That is the backlog for investigational new drug reviews. It used to be like 600 days, nearly 2 years before they got to reviews. And then they just decided, hey, we're gonna make it a target to go faster, much, much faster. And now it's down to like what? They're going for 45 days. I think they're at 60 right now.
Ours is faster. Talk more into the mic.
What's that?
More into the mic.
More into the mic. All right, can you all hear me? Good, great. Next thing. They also allow innovative trial designs. So there are a lot of innovative trial designs. One of my favorites is where you take 2 trials. Eli Lilly tried to do this recently. They're not going to have it approved in the US. It'll work in China with, not survodutide. What's the other one? Whatever. Somebody tell me the glucagon GLP combo after I get down from here. But anyway, Eli Lilly did this, and they tried to show that tirzepatide was better than liraglutide or dulaglutide, and also better than placebo without running a placebo-controlled trial. Because they had 2 trials with the same eligibility criteria, the same sets of patients who could have joined the trials, and they used the control arm from one as the control arm for the second trial. But they never had to run another control arm. That's an innovative control arm. You don't have to run a massive placebo group where you have to monitor these people and give them placebo and, lead them on and lie to them for a little while. You can just take people who could have been your placebo group and then compare them. And that's sufficient to get the estimate you need for an approval. China does more of that, a lot more of that, ever since they did the reforms, where somebody was like, here's a good idea, do it, and then they did it. It's great. I wish America was like this. China also funds a lot of really cool stuff. Like, they give manufacturing subsidies, they cut down the zoning rules. If you want to say, oh, it's really hard for me to make placebo batches for my trial. Could you make it go faster? And they're just like, yeah, we can do that. And then you can build a factory, and then you can start producing whatever you need. You need to do solid phase peptide synthesis? Wow. We'll provide you with some people to talk to, and they'll maybe make that go faster for you. It's great. It's a really wonderful system to make everything go quick. They have a lot of things like that. Okay, so the other thing is, America has been leading in drugs because we spend the most on drugs. It's a large part of it. It's not the entirety of it, obviously. It's a large part of it. America is what, 4% of the world population? We're coming down to exactly 4 soon. We are 13% of all the drug purchases by volume. That's the number of pills, more than 3 times of our population. But we're 53% of all the profits. We spend a lot. We agree to pay a lot in America. You want to take that picture? Let's get it. Perfect. Got you. China doesn't do that. They were like, no, we don't want to pay, half of the money for all the drugs. We'd still like to innovate. So they developed a system where they negotiate the drugs. And lots of European countries, Canada, everybody, they negotiate drug prices. But China was like, hey, this professor in I think it was Beijing, actually, was like, I have a great idea. Instead of using negotiations to lower the profits from the drug companies, why don't you make them more profitable? It's a pretty good idea. I mean, the issue is if you lower the profits of these drug companies so much by lowering the prices, forcing them down or whatever, doing MFN, whatever you want to talk about, then they won't be profitable enough to finance doing the R&D needed to get these drugs out. China decided, we're going to lower the cost and radically increase the volume of the drugs sold. So they help these companies to sell more of their drug at a much, much lower cost, and it ends up making them more profitable. You look on the right side there, the government's expenditures on drugs after they negotiate go down considerably. But the profits for the firms, that green bar there, they actually go up. They negotiate in a way where they try and make the firms they negotiate with benefit from this. Somehow every other country on earth that does drug-to-price negotiations, which America mostly doesn't have, the IRA has some things that it'll come up pretty soon, but they mostly don't. Everybody tries to make them less profitable. But China took the actually like smart kind of capitalisty route of like, hey, you should make more money. I like that. The other thing is, there are no spillovers. So the firms that compete with these firms that are negotiated with, that have their drug volumes of sales increase and their sale prices go down, they're not affected somehow. I mean, healthcare is a superior good. The more money you have, the more you'll tend to spend on it. Somehow China kind of learned this, and they learned, well, we're not going to hurt anybody if we do this. Just make everybody profitable, make them a lot of money, make sure that the drug prices go down. We'll save a lot of money, we'll make everything better. And it worked. So to recap on that part, the prices, they go down. The volume sold goes way up. I really got to eat this mic. And the revenue per drug goes way up. China wants you, as a company they're negotiating with, to do better. They don't want to hurt you. They don't want to say, ooh, Pfizer was charging us too much. Fuck Pfizer. We're going to hurt Pfizer. They go, no, Pfizer was charging us too much. Well, we got a better deal for you. We're going to make you a lot of money, and you'll charge us less, right? And that's a much, much better way of doing things. And there's no spillovers. So no other firms are hurt by this. It's honestly incredible. Okay. The other thing is, when they do these negotiations, the NRDL, they know what drugs they should be funding, what they should be going after to negotiate. So they ask scientists every year, they're like, hey, how's China doing? Is our health bad? Is our health good? Are there people struggling with blah, blah, blah? Are they struggling with like NSCLC? Do they have, pancreatic cancer going wild? And they negotiate more for the drugs in these categories that are identified as like, particularly bad. And when that happens, companies actually know that if they get in those areas, China will come again, knock on their door and go, hey, we want to negotiate, and they'll respond by putting out more trials. So to the extent there are drug negotiations for an indication, like lung cancer or like colorectal cancer, whatever it may be, there are additional trials for those indications. Meaning companies start to pursue the government's funding, and the government also directs the funding, not directly, by just knowing what to go after. Which means that China has figured out how to fund pharmaceutical research without going bankrupt. This is a huge feat. It's probably the biggest thing in the slideshow. America hasn't done this. We pay out the nose for everything, and it's not great. Drugs shouldn't be as expensive as they are. But China has figured out how to lower the costs and to make more profits, which is incredible. The FDA is trying to do stuff about this too. China deregulated in an amazing way. They did a really, really good job. They're doing an even better job. They're still innovating in deregulation. They're still looking at more stuff to do. But the FDA is too. They started to notice, and they started to think, we got to compete with China. We got to beat China. We got to get ahead. They have wonderful new types of trial design. Wait, what was that? Okay. We'll talk about it afterwards. You can run new types of trials. You can get drugs approved off of evidence that used to be considered too scanty. You can do all sorts of interesting stuff. It's probably not enough because America is also sabotaging itself. Oh, okay. So the cost of capital is higher than the typical returns on pharmaceutical investments in the US. So there's not a lot of reason to go after making new drugs, unless you're really, really certain the drug's gonna be good and get approved. But that's not a certainty. More than 90% of drugs people introduce never actually get approved because they're usually shit. And that's no less true in America than anywhere else. There was a brief bump in profits in America, but it didn't last very much with the GLP-1s. Really unfortunate. And President Trump made this considerably worse by instituting something called MFN, Most Favored Nation Pricing. What this entails, and he hasn't really done full MFN, it's kind of fake MFN, but whatever. What this entails is comparing American drug prices to the prices in peer nations like Germany, the UK, Denmark, whatever, other rich countries, and then going, hey, we're not going to pay any more than those countries pay. So if the UK pays $100 for a GLP-1, some sort of GLP-1, America says we're not going to pay more than $100 for GLP-1. You give us the same price. And this lowers pharmaceutical firm profits, which means there's not much more incentive to do R&D. It reduces the incentive to do R&D. It makes the R&D harder to pay off and to finance. When they do full-blown bargaining, it's very bad. Not like China does, they do great bargaining. But when you do these comparisons with other countries, you really, really hurt an already struggling industry. Pharmaceutical profits are already far too low. You might disagree with that. It might sound weird, but no, pharma companies don't make nearly enough money. And America's fucking it again, whereas China's going ahead and like going, hey, you should make more money, and saving themselves. And unfortunately, that's just how the situation is. So, to be clear, can America catch up? America faces a lot of bad things. There are a lot of headwinds against us that are slowing down the ship. They're making it so we're probably going to keel over. Our pharmaceutical profits are collapsing. The current admin would like them to collapse more. There's regulatory chaos. Do any of you know who Vinay Prasad is? Good. I like seeing a show of hands on that one. Remember when Vinay approved Cure's trial design, and then when they gave the readout, he said no? So basically, this guy at the FDA, he ran the CBR, the Center for Biological Evaluation and Research, and he told this company, all right, you can do this trial for Huntington's chorea. And it's a certain design, and it's going to be not too expensive. It's going to be really good. You're going to be able to do it really quickly. And then when they gave him the results and they were positive, he changed his mind. So basically, the FDA lied to this company and told them they could do a design they never really could. That's horrible. If you can't actually plan ahead as a company, why even run a trial when you think the FDA is just going to turn their back and go, fuck you? Which is effectively what they did. Tanked them stock prices is pretty bad. That is happening a lot, unfortunately. And there are vested interests. There are like boomers who don't want you to build a factory. There are people who think it's unethical to run certain clinical trials. There are people who don't want to pay more for drugs. There's whatever. And they just don't want you to win here. Whereas China, they're doing pretty good. They have been embracing deregulation. They have found a means to fund pharmaceutical innovations. They lower the prices, they increase the corporate profits, and they know which diseases to target to maximally increase population health. So, what's the question? Can America catch up? You might not be able to see the headline there. It's cut off a little bit. Can America catch up and get ahead? I don't know. I'm really not sure. Maybe we will all just have to become Chinese.
No.
Maybe all of our trials will end up running in China.
No.
And as it actually happens, American firms are increasingly doing all their trials in China. Questions? He was first.
Just a quick one. So on the
No, behind you.
Yeah. So is there like some reason why the American way is safer, or is this just stupid?
It's not safer at all.
That was a part of my question. I actually do fully believe China can do shit. Thumbs up. But there is, the numbers, right? It's like, are they a little bit more lax such that, we maybe should adjust the numbers a little bit?
No, they've been cracking down as part of this deregulatory drive on fraud, and they've locked people up for life for fraud, and it's going pretty well. We should do that in America, actually.
Yeah, but not even fraud, right? Like they might say, I want 200 trials this year, so I'm going to change the rules to allow for that to happen.
Sure. Okay.
Do you think the Chevron doctrine being overturned is going to benefit us in this way?
No, it will not benefit us. If the current administration had Chevron deference, so by the way, Chevron deference, everybody know what that is? No. Okay, nobody knows what that is. Okay, great. So in court cases, you used to have to defer to the regulatory agencies. So say the FDA says X, Y, Z. Well, then the court has to believe X, Y, Z. And they had to do that until 2 years ago. And if Trump had this right now, he'd be able to deregulate everything he wanted. Unfortunately, no. But when the Dems would get back in, it would mean more regulations anyway, so it's kind of a bust in the long run. I don't really know. Chevron is a good thing when you have deregulators in power, and it's a bad thing when you have over-regulators in power. So on net, in the long run, I don't think it would be that good to have. And it's definitely not that bad to have, because it also reins in over-regulators. Take a shot. All right. Yeah, you, skinny guy in front.
Do you think democracy is a failed system to innovate?
God, for everybody in the back, this guy asked, did democracy fail? Not really. I mean, for example, Australia has a better system for this. and we could just mimic them. The issue is more that we allow these like random interest groups to break our democracy. I don't think it's an inherent problem. We can reel them back in. I mean, the UK would be the great test case for this. So Blair in the 90s was like, we have to limit Thatcher and her people forever. We have to introduce quangos and committees and whatever it may be and slow down everything. No more legislation, no more parliamentary sovereignty. But Parliament is sovereign. And if Parliament were there to just say, hey, we're going to reform everything, they could. America has something relatively similar. You can just reform it in theory. I don't think democracy has failed until we've really attempted this, and I don't think we really have.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it heartening that FDA has a lot of regulatory discretion?
Yes. Sorry, he asked, is it heartening that the FDA has a lot of regulatory discretion? And a large part of the reason for this is actually that Congress has abdicated its duty to govern. In the past, like, half century, Congress has decided, no, we're not going to actually write out what the law should say. We're going to defer to the regulatory agencies, which in a lot of cases used to mean permanent Democrats in power who would regulate in the ways that Democrats in Congress would like to see. And by deferring in this way, they would advance their policy goals, not having to actually write any policy or get informed about anything, and congressmen could just afford to be stupid. I mean, they're going to be stupid either way, but like they can afford to be stupid. And it's very heartening they've given a lot of this power to the FDA in the current moment, but it's not heartening down the line. The issue is that it allows deregulators to cut stuff and make things better. It allows an overregulator to come along and go, hey, we're making it harder to run trials.
Yeah.
Fuck you. That's what they can do.
Fair.
Partially hard.
Yeah.
So you're saying that right now drug companies are not profitable. Well, I was sort of led to believe by the numbers that pharmaceutical companies are incredibly profitable. There's a disconnect.
They're lambasted. They're hated. It's kind of like saying, Walmart, for example. They have pretty razor-thin profit margins, but people think they're massively profitable just because they're large, they're scaled up, they're huge. There are some companies in the pharma space that are doing incredibly well. Like Eli Lilly is doing incredibly well. They're great. Most companies in pharma fail effectively immediately, unfortunately. You don't see these companies that never get really big, but it's the majority of the space and the majority of the innovations, and they just don't actually do much. They get killed early on.
So how does China facilitate phase 2 and 3 enrollment and recruiting? Because as someone in the industry, I think it's great what Australia is doing, but phase 1 is like a rounding error that nobody cares about in terms of like when you have to think about pharma decision making.
Yeah, so China actually allows you to skip the phase 1 a lot of the time by adopting a foreign phase 1. So America created this wonderful thing called the International Council on Harmonization, and then we don't actually use it. We made this thing where we set up how trials are designed and run, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and we made it so you could do reciprocity and recognition of what the trials actually show. You could say like, they ran this trial over here and they found this result. We could just go straight to phase 2 because they already ran the thing. China accepts that. And America, even though we invented the system and still fund the system, doesn't use it because of hangovers from the thalidomide thing where we didn't actually fuck up, the EMA fucked up. Like, with thalidomide, do you guys understand what went wrong there? Okay. In Europe, they approved a drug that should not have been approved for use during pregnancy, and it caused a lot of teratogenesis, caused a lot of birth defects. It was a very bad drug that killed a lot of babies, led a lot of people being, born in a very bad way. In America, this one woman at the FDA was like, hey, there's no trial data, so I don't think we should approve this. And we didn't approve it. But we learned from that America should never accept reciprocity with other countries because they're slapdash and we're not. We're better than them. And we've never gotten over the fact that we were better than them that one time. And now the EMA is actually more careful than we are. So it's not going well for us. We have created our own international regulatory apparatus that we don't use, and now our rival, China, does use to accelerate their clinical trials. Does that answer your question, or do you want to ask?
Oh no, I was curious about phase 2 and phase 3, not phase 1 representation.
I know, the phase 1 is what we skip over to go to the phase 2. That China just runs the phase 2. They also just run sometimes racially Chinese trials where they go, did this work in America? Well, we're going to run a smaller trial on Chinese people and see if it works for us, and then bam, they run it. We're very foolish about this. Our regulations don't really respect what the international regulatory framework we've tried to create. We're just dumb kind of about this. It's a poor situation.
With that in mind, the slide you have behind you right now with folks running trials in China, will the FDA accept this data?
They do accept some of the data, yeah, but not all of it. We just don't. And also, these are European firms too. Some of them do accept Chinese data.
So if the majority of
people knows are going to be Han. Is there any data that causes you to worry that Han aren't going to be physiologically represented for other populations?
This is actually one of the great things. So I was just mentioning these racially Chinese trials. China requires you to show that it works in racially Chinese people. That's their terminology. They're racially Chinese, whatever. It's kind of whatever. They want you to prove that it works in Chinese people. Well, what we found from all these trials they do where they show that it works in Chinese people is that it seems to pretty much always work. There's like not a lot of human diversity when it comes to drug responses, and if there is, it's quite minor, and it's mostly dose response stuff. It's not like sign of the effect is different. It's almost always like immunotherapy still stimulates Chinese people as much as it does like white people. It might have a different magnitude, like the effect size might differ a little bit, but it's almost never a sign change.
Do we just need a bunch of crossroads? And if so, where do you think the next one's going to be?
So her question is, do we want a bunch of like these independent libertarian districts who can run whatever sort of trial you want? And I think those are good. They serve a purpose. I mean, I'm running trials in one right now. I understand this like whole thing. I don't think the solution, unfortunately. People don't recognize them, they're not going to respect them. The FDA won't respect them. So I think ultimately not, unfortunately. I really wish you could do more of this, but also the regulatory frameworks in these places aren't that great yet. They'll improve. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe they will see, like, you know, bringing drugs to fruition, but I just don't think so right now. It's not on the horizon. You, close.
So I think one other thing that they did, and you could speak to this, is the Chinese investigator-initiated clinical trial, where you run a small clinical trial at a hospital before a phase 1, and you don't even need to use GMP clinical grade material.
That's right. That came alongside the MHA reforms.
Yeah, and so I guess if you speak to the crowd about that, because I think that's a major advantage for really innovative biotech companies to get quick data before a formal scale up in phase 1.
Yeah.
And that speeds them on.
So in the U.S., you are limited. So okay, I was talking about the market holder authorizations with them in China earlier. They make you take all of the responsibility for the preclinical evidence, meaning the stuff before you actually initiate the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3s. What he's asking is about can you run like a small trial with the drug ahead of time and then use that to inform your priors about what the dosing should be, the titration schedule, the everything. Will the drug even work? And China allows that. You take responsibility for that as a Chinese trial runner. America doesn't allow that, unfortunately. I mean, you can take priors from previous studies. You can do repurposing. Like the Roivant model is basically repurposing from old trials. There are ways to do this, but it's not as formalized in America yet, unfortunately. I'd like to see more of that, though. Behind you?
You talked about IRB reform, and I imagine like most cities in America are relatively similar. They're culturally similar. Do we have data on how often one IRB fails when others pass?
Yeah, probably, but I don't really know it.
Oh, okay.
Guy.
So you've made a few remarks on this, but do you have like what's your sense of the main causes of just adverse drug trial regulation in the U.S. compared to a place like Australia?
I mean, it's a political economy problem at the end of the day. Like, you have interest groups that don't want things to happen or do want things to happen. So, do you guys know about PDUFA and GDUFA? I saw one guy said yes, so nobody knows this one. Great, this is like an unknown topic. PDUFA is the Prescription Drug User Fee Amendments. GDUFA is the Generic Drug User Fee Amendments. These are things the FDA is regulated to do by Congress. It's statutory, where it describes how they are supposed to finance doing the reviews and whatnot of new prescription drugs and of generic drugs that are based off of existing prescription drugs. Obviously, if you don't know what generic is, then I don't know why you even think about healthcare. The PDUFA was designed very rationally. They give you a waiver for your first prescription drug as a company. They give you all sorts of leeway. They try to make everything go really fast, and it finances a large part of the FDA. The GDUFA, the Generic Drug User Fee Amendments, were designed by the guys who wrote the Prescription Drug User Fee Amendments. There's a conflict of interest here. If you introduce a prescription drug, you do not want there to be a generic drug. And it's not good for you to have designed the generic drug introduction regulations. But that's just how it is, because the FDA had a pre-existing rule that they cannot negotiate with individual companies or persons. They have to negotiate with groups, consortia. And the consortium that had the most power, the most pull, the most lobbying, the most effort was PHRMA, which is effectively like a very evil consortium. They're really the worst people in Big Pharma. They're truly awful. And they made it so, for example, when you start trying to introduce a generic drug, you would have to pay ahead of time before you're even approved, and if you don't get approved, you still have to pay. Like, a lot of things are irrational about the system, and they were designed to be irrational so they can prevent competition. I think it's just a political economy problem at the end of the day.
How do we strike a balance between, on the one hand, the pharma companies need to make profit, right? Like what we said. On the other hand, Eli Lilly is, in my opinion, unfairly trying to lobby retatrutide into biologics, but like you can count at 39 is not fucking 40.
I agree.
And so like, what's the balance there? Because like, yes, I want you to make money to be profitable, but also you don't play fair.
Of course. So she asked a really philosophical question. Why is the number 39 not the number 40?
It's also a website. 39 is not 40.
Somebody actually made that for biologics?
I'm working on an open letter.
Oh, she's working on it. It's her thing. Great. Good. I mean, I hope Eli Lilly loses on this. So the issue she's talking about is that Eli Lilly is trying to get the classification of a peptide, a up to 40 amino acid sequence changed to be a biologic, which has more severe regulations and allows companies to protect their profits and their patenting times more, and to prevent entry of competitors like a generic or a biosimilar, a similar close drug. Hello. It's interesting. You do have to balance, but the thing is, when companies have their 7-year exclusivity period in the US, that is almost certainly enough time to finance the R&D, and we can also lower the R&D costs by just making the clinical trials easier to run. Every country where we have a good balance on or not a good balance, but a good tracking of how much it actually costs and how much they profit, China, shows that they make a lot of money. So it's a bullshit argument on their part. They're lying effectively about the profits that they are not getting. They would love to, for example, like Merck. They are switching people from Pembro infusions to Pembro sub-Q. It's a strategy called evergreening, where they're getting all the current existing practices to adopt sub-Q Pembro formulations. That's the pembrolizumab, it's Keytruda, it's immunotherapy, so that they can keep their protection from generics going. China just says no, and they don't have profit issues. So it's bullshit, basically. They're just lying. And they are trying to protect their profits at the expense of the American taxpayer and the world.
What percent of the annoying bullshit that is stopping us from being good as China is law versus regulation?
Wow. Okay, so I mentioned that Congress, he's asking what percentage of the bullshit that stops us from being as good as China on this is due to law, statute from Congress versus regulation. And the issue is Congress abdicated their duty to actually write the laws. So a lot of what they say is going to be law becomes regulatory stuff, parts of the CFR. It can be hard to change something that's very specific in the statute. So around 50% of all of the CFR can be eliminated entirely without any statutory issues. 12% has to be kept as it is. And 38% can be substantially modified. It's a lot of effort. If you guys are lawyers, I'll put you in touch with people. You can go talk about this. But I'd say most of it ended up being regulatory because Congress said they're not going to do it.
Yeah, there's also a lot of stuff that's not specified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the regulatory agencies. So a lot of stuff is also not specified by Congress. That's the whole issue. They abdicated their duty to properly govern. They're not giving you clear laws. So they let the regulatory agencies kind of have, free whim to do whatever they want to do. You got a question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are there promising things that are happening in terms of the U.S. Approaches?
Chevron doctrine?
No. There are plenty of promising things happening in the FDA. I mean, I highlighted, can I say?
Yeah.
I highlighted your thing on here.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's on the right side. You see it?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, you guys.
What was his thing? What was his thing?
Can I say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the guy up here launched the FDA's internal AI tools. It's right on the right side there. They're going to be good, I hope, eventually. They started off, they're like... Good man here. Cheers for Ryan, all right. And those things are good. The Bayesian clinical trial design thing is extremely good and will be realized in the, in time as very, very good. But it's not enough. There are a lot of really basic things that aren't happening. America's saying we're going to get rid of the 2-trial efficacy dogma and everything, and then they're not really going to do it. The Bayesian clinical trial design, they're not approving most of the submitted novel trial designs. And of course, when Cure brought them a novel trial design, they said, no, fuck you. You can't have, your readout is fake. We're not fake, but like, we're not gonna accept it at the end of the day. So yes and no, because we still don't have regulators that are competent enough to actually implement the reforms they want to do.
The other thing I would add is the real-time clinical trials as well.
I know. He's highlighting another one of his initiatives. They're very good. I mean, if you guys know about the UK's recovery trial, brilliant trial. And we're going to be able to do that in America because of this man up here. Relatively soon-ish, if we can fix some of our privacy regulations. But otherwise, we're kind of stuck. Yeah, let me push this to the end again. Da-da-da-da. Yeah. You?
So two-part question. One, talk about the difference in the financing landscape for biotechs and also the taste of what they're financing in the US versus China. And the second part is, what's then the hope for individual US biotechs in this sort of current moment, right? What are the places where they should go to survive?
So I think I'll answer this as one thing, actually. I mean, the hope for biotech is that you hit it big with one indication and you just like swallow it up and you sell a bunch of whatever you're making for a large amount. That's about it. You hope for one gangbusters investment. You're not like a hedge fund. You're not going after like small returns here or there. You're going after one thing. It's the same financing situation in China. I don't really see a difference.
Yes. How do you think prediction markets could be used to improve?
Woo! So if you guys don't know, Michael just asked, what do you think about prediction markets? Which, by the way, he's working on for clinical trials. They could definitely be used to cut them down shorter. They should be part of the Bayesian information that we are now supposed to be accepting, but aren't actually. If the FDA adopts the guidance it has set out properly, then they have an immediate, obvious use of supplying information related to how well the thing will work. That's a pretty obvious one. There are a lot of other ways to go about this, though.
Do you think they would ever adopt that, or do you think they need something more clinical?
I mean, so wait, they formally did. It's top there, top left. They did adopt this. They said they would do it, but they like aren't actually doing it. That's the issue, is they're not really doing what they said they're going to do. Let me move back, and then I'll take more questions. We're going to be Chinese, blah, blah. Yeah, long guy.
Yeah, I might not understand the space, but isn't there already concern that a lot of prediction markets are manipulated with moneyed interests?
Sure.
I'm wondering if you could educate us about how that could specifically be something that there could be. You know,
The person you should talk to about that is actually this guy who just asked the previous question. He has LLMs doing it. They're not really affected by money interest so much in the same way. I mean, I assume if you detected some moneyed interest back in the...
Grok is a little greedy.
Grok is greedy, apparently. I don't know. Talk to him afterwards. Behind you.
You said that in China, you're able to recoup the costs of like lower per unit profit by doing more volume. Does that mean in the US, there's like less saturation and less volume? Like, are people not getting enough medication?
Yes. So we ran surveys on this last year about GLP-1s. We wanted to assess the real demand. And we had some wonderful little surveys and incentive devices where you like pay them money for honesty and stuff. And more than half of Americans were willing to take GLP-1 drugs, and they would at the price point that Canada was willing to offer them through the A-to-4B import program via their generic manufacturers. But we just had to reform the program, and we just didn't. So there are huge numbers of drugs that Americans would love to take, but they don't because of cost.
Yeah. You mentioned before that there was an industry group that was trying to
PHRMA.
They were trying to increase thresholds, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like if the industry has these incentives, and a lot of them are already running these drug trials in China, what groups actually have an incentive to make the system lower cost and easier to use?
Groups that have no power. If you are a new generic drug manufacturer, you have no sway in America because you're one guy, and who are you going to organize with? Well, you don't have a legal department. You're a new company. You have 5 guys making a crazy drug in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, and you're going to go out and sell your cool new minoxidil, or like you're going to go sell your cool new Viagra, and you don't actually have connections to the 50 other companies you need to be connected with to form a consortium to actually talk to the FDA. So unfortunately, the situation blocks incumbents. That's the whole idea. The reason they created the rule was because the pharmaceutical corporations got to lobby Congress to make it possible for them to block people from negotiating in the first place.
Hi,
should we bring back American medical manufacturing? Like
Yes.
chemical-
Should we bring back American API manufacturing? Yes, absolutely. The way to do this, though, is to do it with a destination-based cash flow tax. So it's like a VAT with an export subsidy. It would destroy tax havens, and it would force everybody to manufacture here if they want to make the most profits without actually causing distortions like Diamond Murley says tariffs do, which they obviously do.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking onto that. So, if Western firms are shifting manufacturing to China, do you see like do you have any thoughts on like IP theft, basically carrying over to like?
Yeah, so the FDA offers you exclusivity for 7 years, regardless of the IP. You could have a company go right now and run trials for BBC 157, the bullshit peptide, the body protecting compound, helps your joints or whatever. Some people swear by it; they're kind of crazy. You could have them go and take this and get 7 years of exclusivity without a patent. So we already have ideas for this in place. They are used. People underemphasize them intentionally to protect the idea that pharmaceutical manufacturers need more protections. And it's kind of bullshit. They don't recognize that you don't actually need the patent. Glasses.
If the U.S. government negotiates drug prices to be higher, is it a subsidy by the government, or is it the taxpayer, or the patient, or the?
If you negotiated higher drug prices, you would probably sell a lower volume of your drug, I assume. Why would they negotiate a higher price? I'm kind of curious.
I think I'm confused. How do we increase the profit? I guess if we're increasing a profit for a drug company, who pays the?
Okay, so China increases pharmaceutical manufacturers' profits by increasing the volume they sell more than they in terms of raw profit extent, to the extent that they cut down the cost. So they cut the cost, the government pays less, people pay more out of pocket as a share because they're willing to pay out of pocket for these drugs because they're less expensive because of the negotiations. And you sell a larger volume of the drugs as a result.
Is there a McCary replacement you're rooting for?
Yes, but I'm not allowed to say his name. Well, her name.
Oh.
Anyone else? All right. That was fun.
Thank you all for coming. We have the bar for as long as we need, and yeah, enjoy.
Wonderful.
So I'm gonna because I basically run clinical trial strategy.
Get Massey in here.
Okay. But yeah, Tim, I'm actually kind of curious how people get involved with this. This is something I care a ton about, but I can't know how the fuck I get involved.
Excellent.
Yeah.
People in the government?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Legitimately, it's the biggest thing that we need to be taken care of. We're losing so much ground in this shit constantly, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Because basically what I do is.
Are you in the FDA? No. Who's the one that was talking about the FDA?
Value maximize and how we actually do increase value. Because of the Bayesian trial thing, because nobody knows value in the company.
Oh, really?
Dude, not even joking. Legitimately, I'm the one who has to be telling them about major goals and things that are happening at the time. For example, like I said, on the phase 1, because it's CEO's on his desk. I just want to tell them about this. Even our CEO's the head of research.
I'm very fast. One of the great things this past week is getting people up.
And then do you want to drink?
Yeah, sure. Like an IPA.
IPA?
You're the best. We
Of
love
course,
that.
we love it.
No, go ahead. When you have notes prepared, it's cheating. Yeah, you just want to think fast enough. Yeah, just go fast. What's your name? Ariel? Ariel, have we been phone? All right. Portia. Nice to meet you.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Love it.
So now it's the other way around.
strategic, or is it because we're the only guys who are going to run the numbers and add up and make it together? The thing is, like, it's funny because these things are going on for 30 seconds. Because like, there's like 3 levels of level below that are just basically it's crazy.
But like also like somewhat shifted despite
They haven't had this leverage on it.